To me, there are far more anomalies than there is a cohesive single story.
Why are we relying so heavily on the stone architecture?
Europe is poured over, and it's also vastly smaller.
It is certainly not a basement, and it is potentially
so the other thing,
mysterious.
So I'm not the guy that's going to bow down to academia. Welcome to Into the Unknown with Mike and John, Season 3, Episode 9.
Niner.
All right, we're back for Part 2 of our discussion of Mystery Hill, New Hampshire. That's right. And actually, for us, it was like 5 minutes ago.
Five minutes ago.
But we had to break. And we just decided, we'll just make another hour-long episode. We think we can wrap this up in another hour or so. Yeah, okay. But, so, as you know, I'm Mike. Damn, your scripts are huge. Duber.
And I'm John. I was going to make some comment about huge. I'm John Fitzpatrick. I'll just leave it at that, and we'll leave that huge comment alone.
Yeah, my scripts are huge.
It's your scripts. Yes, that's right,
what
sir.
They are. Yes.
That's right.
Yep, these huge scripts.
I'm John. That's what she said. Fitzpatrick.
Nice.
Oh, I'm going to get roasted for that one by somebody. Okay.
Wow. Well, that makes it fun. So far, it's been fun. I mean, yeah, we've had fun. We had fun last week.
Time travel's fun.
Yeah. And now we're back. But I think we left you also on a cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Is that who's visiting us? Cliffhanger?
Yeah. Oh. That's a good one.
No.
It's a cliffhanger because we said there was a surprise. And so here it is. Guess who else covered Mystery Hill? Go ahead.
I already know.
Yeah, I know you know.
Yes,
tell us, John.
the name Hans Holzer has sprung to mind again.
Amazing.
Again, yes. I watched that. That was part of my research, was watching his episode of In Search Of, where he, and I think it was Barry Fell, visited.
He and Barry Fell went?
I think, if I recall correctly, it was Barry Fell. Visited this location, Mystery Hill / America Stonehenge. It was actually, I think I misspoke before. I may have even been in my USS Constitution, Constellation episode where we brought this up. Hans Holzer and Fell appeared on episode 2 of season 1 of In Search Of. I think I said he was in the very first episode, but it was actually episode 2 of season 1. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, we seem to be following behind the Holzer Files team. And again, that's Dave Schrader, Cindy Kazaa.
Yeah, because they went to visit more recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Shane Pittman. So, they have that 2-season series with a number of episodes. And frankly, I'm positive I saw it, but I had forgotten. And I had selected Mystery Hill as a discussion topic. But then I was just cruising through their episodes, and I saw it, and I was like, oh man, you know what? They're going to think we're on their heels. And I don't know, maybe we are. Maybe I'll just email Dave Schrader and see if he'll come on the show and talk to us.
But you've actually been to Mystery Hill, so I mean, it's not like, I mean, this is a famous conundrum of American paranormal lore. So lots of people have been there. Lots of people have seen things. And as we mentioned before in the Constitution, I did it again. Constellation episode. Drink now.
Yeah, I'm gonna drink.
Yeah. The fact is that Holzer was not just one of the founding fathers of the modern paranormal scene, but the modern paranormal media scene.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, it's episode 2 of In Search Of, and almost everything today, including our podcast in so many ways, looks back at that as the foundation, the original bit of paranormal media. I mean, stuff was before it, stuff has come after, but that's the touchstone. That's the real point. So, it's inevitable to run into these figures. It's impossible not to trip over them and not to cover old ground. All you can do is sort of have a new take on it or try to approach it with a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't feel conspicuous, but I do think it's funny.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, but what a great team to follow. I mean, they put on a really good show, and I enjoy it, and you should watch them. All right, so let's dig in. What did the Holzer team find? Because, they conducted the paranormal investigation. Now, John and I are looking at the archaeological investigation, sort of the historical aspects to it, but they really dug in on the paranormal side. And here's what they found.
Oh, this is new to me. I am completely cold. I did not watch the Holzer Files stuff. The Insurgent episode was a little bit of Holzer's psychic archaeology. I come here and I'm going to touch the stone and have some psychometric feelings about it. Not a lot of that. It was mostly him chatting with Barry Fell about his theories at the time, which maybe we'll get back to.
Okay.
But yeah, the paranormal stuff, hit me with it.
All right, well, let's do it. John, there are strange elemental forces. There are dark shadow figures and dreadful, unsafe feelings.
I have dreadful, unsafe feelings, but maybe that's just the state of the world today.
Maybe you have an attachment. Maybe you need to smudge yourself, John.
I don't think it's an attachment.
Maybe you need a set of huge scripts. Who knows?
Huge scripts.
Yeah, man.
That's what I need.
They're big.
Okay.
You see them. You're looking at one right now.
Yep.
All right. Now, there was an incredible photo taken by Alexandra Holzer. She showed up on site with the team.
Okay.
Now, they were inside the Oracle Chamber. Now, she also had her father's camera. This is a film camera.
More psychometry, in a sense.
I thought it was cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And so she snapped a shot, and they had it developed.
So this is real film.
Yeah, they would have had to develop it.
Real film.
Right, yeah. And that shows a shadow figure peering around a corner, looking into the passage chamber. All right, so if you remember from last week, we said the passage chamber, it resembled what they call a resurrection chamber, but frankly, we're not really sure at all, what they used this chamber for. But they caught a shadow person. Now, Cindy, as you know, she's the psychic at the group. She sensed what she called the Watcher, and she also sensed ritual sacrifices. Now, the takeaway message that we got from Cindy was that we are not supposed to be here. Now, another experiencer interviewed on the show said this, that during the spring equinox, he saw a strange mist, then an apparition running. He said he felt a horrible feeling in broad daylight. He had dark, heavy feelings over his whole body. In a separate incident, during the summer solstice sunset, which is one of the alignments of importance, he took a photo with an orb, and behind two boys that he photographed and their father, he captured a strange figure. Standing behind the boy, the father and his two boys. Now, this gets interesting. That stuff was interesting. This is even more interesting. Dave Schrader, the team leader, spoke with a representative of the local indigenous. Daryl Black Eagle Jameson of the Pokanote, or the Wampanoag tribe. And, those names, I think, John, you understand that there are lots of different names for these tribes, and we're going to get into that.
And then they have subgroupings like this.
Lots of subgroups.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're going to get into, we're going to touch a little bit of that. But Wampanoag, we've mentioned that tribe before.
Yeah, familiar with them.
Now, Daryl Black Eagle Jameson is an honest-to-goodness guy. I looked him up. He's legitimate, and he is a representative of the Wampanoags. He said to Dave Schrader as they're walking towards the site, "This is as far as I will go." He also said, "We did not build that, and especially not that sacrificial table." He said Black Eagle said that the last time he was there, an energy jumped on him, and there was an energy pressing into his chest. He said his heart rate rose dramatically, and he was having trouble breathing. Now, once he had moved through the site and beyond, he said the strange energy seemed to dissipate and he felt better. But he felt like he was being stopped from where he wanted to go. And Black Eagle called it an ancient evil. Now that came, again, this guy is a legitimate guy. I looked him up, and so two things that I found as a takeaway. He didn't want to go near the site. He said the nation didn't build it, and that it was full of an ancient evil. Interesting. We're going to touch upon that a little later.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to go into that a little bit more. Now, also, we mentioned Scott Walter. He's a character in this paranormal world that we inhabit. Now, he was on hand to corroborate the dedication stone found in one of the structures. This is also an artifact that you can see at Mystery Hill if you go and visit at the visitor center. This is the Canaanite inscription using the Iberian script. So Scott was there, and he displayed the artifact and told Dave all about it. So It's another great episode. You don't want to miss it. Go watch. There's a lot of interesting things to see there and a lot of reaction. And you also get a really good view of the site. So there you go. Any thoughts there? Any questions?
No.
Sure we covered that.
Nothing at this point.
All right.
Maybe later.
Okay.
Maybe it might circle back depending on how this pivots.
Maybe bring it back in.
Okay.
Now, let's move on. Now, I'm going to mention a researcher. Her name is Mary Gage. And now she's convinced that the indigenous constructed the site. And her website, that we'll link to, lays out the archaeological evidence using artifacts found there. And there are quite a few. There's pottery shards, stone points, jewelry pieces, or fetishes as they're known. That is, a small trinket maybe with a hole drilled into it, very indicative of the indigenous tribes. Now, her attention to the matter demands respect, and I acknowledge her theories. And so she's put a lot of work in. Now, however, John, she does not appear to have collegiate scholarship.
Okay.
I'm not sure she holds any credentials. She might, but it doesn't appear so. They're not foremost in front because what she does put forward is that other than her son being well-read on the topic, they've been involved in investigations for 30 years. So you can decide whether that makes them trustworthy experts or not. Trustworthy experts or not. I don't really care. The 30 years reading about it and looking at the artifacts is good enough for me. But I found that native tribal boundaries were and still are very blurry. I consulted a few sites that show me that Mystery Hill is on a border between the Pawtucket, the Pentucket, Agawam, and Abenaki lands.
Okay.
I'm sure it has shifted through time. It's not. They're not set, and it was just sort of it's like a heat map, what do they call that? The overlay, the areas.
The Venn diagram.
The Venn diagram
of
all the tribes and who's been through there. And interestingly, Black Eagle, somebody might point out, well, the Wampanoag is more of southern Massachusetts, Rhode Island.
Not in that list you just read off of
That's
the
right.
Pawtucket, Pentucket, Agawam, and Abenaki.
That's correct.
So that would be easy for him to say, my people didn't build that.
We didn't build it. Well, so there's a little there. Yeah, we'll get to that too.
Yeah.
Now, from the English point of view, there is a colonial record of a land deed.
Okay.
And
you know how much I love my land records.
I was so excited when I saw this. I'm like, I've got to put this in for John.
Yeah, it's been a while since we actually had a legal connection to things. Although we did talk about don't go to jail for misusing congressionally appropriated funds in the Constitution episode, whatever it was. All right, drink
right.
again.
Yeah, the illegal acquisition practices. Yeah, we touched it. Now, here's the quote from the land deed. It's not a quote per se, but okay. In the book, History of Haverhill, which is a town very nearby, from its first settlement in 1640 to the year 1860, there is a transcription of the 1642 land deed from the Pentucket to an English company of settlers who purchased their territory, or at least part of it. And you've got a PDF that you can link to there that I'll put in the show notes. Now, But here is a quote about the Pawtucket, which is interesting. And John, would you cover that for me?
Sure. Despite common misconceptions labeling the Pawtucket as a tribe or alternate name for different Native American tribes, the Pawtucket people were a group of people who lived in bands throughout Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Prior to colonization, the Pawtucket had never organized into any kind of tribe or nation. They lived in bands made up of 10 to 50 people and identified as a whole through their distinct dialect and shared ancestry from northern New England. These lands are part of the Wampanoag Nation. The Pawtucket did not live in settled communities, but migrated seasonally throughout their territories in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. The Pawtucket do not exist in any organized band, tribe, or nation today, but many Wampanoag, Nipmuc, and Massachusetts tribes claim Pawtucket ancestry. Okay.
So it's muddy,
Yeah.
to say the least. And that, again, that comes from Native American heritage information, and that
Good find.
yeah, it was a good find. So, but anyway, so let's dig back in. Does that sound like a group or a tribe that would build permanent stone structures? They band in groups of 10 to 50 and are migrant or partially migrant or hunter-gathering, I may add. Maybe. Now, could they have appropriated the structures? Now, this is common in archaeology and often causes confusion. Now, it is just a logical way to say, just because I occupied it does not mean I built it. If I spray my name on a building in Baltimore City, will future generations think I built it? No. But that happens
example.
a lot.
Yes,
it
it
happens
does.
a lot.
Yes.
We
Might have even
this.
happened to a pyramid or two.
That's right. And I cut that out. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll read that later
and
on.
I'm saying that facetiously, but yeah, okay. I know the controversy there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now there's a lot at play, but I think it is not as simple as it appears. Now, I think one healthy way to look at this is to zoom out a little bit from Mystery Hill and see what a broader context can provide us.
Okay.
Now, let's dig in, and we'll mention Barry Fell. We
Barry.
talked about old Barry.
Barry Phil.
Barry gets a lot of grief. Okay. Barry. Yeah.
Barry White.
Barry fell.
Barry Phil.
Barry fell down. Okay. Now, in his book, America, B.C., Barry Fell covers Mystery Hill, but many other artifacts and discoveries. His book is not just about Mystery Hill. Now, he believes they, meaning all of these artifacts across the entire North America, point to significant European interaction in the Americas from as early as 5500 BC. Visiting civilizations with supporting evidence include the Iberian and Goidelic Celts, Phoenicians, also known as the Canaanites, Egyptians, Romans, Muslim Arabs, and of course, Vikings. Now, that is no small list and an equally immense statement. Now, I found the book compelling strictly by the sheer number of anomalous rock carvings and inscriptions, and from root cellars to script to petroglyphs, rock carvings, there is clearly a need for clarity on these artifacts. Now, we'll mention that Barry Fell, as previously mentioned, his PhD was from the University of Edinburgh. Edinburgh. Yeah, I always want to pronounce the G. Edinburgh.
Yeah, most people do.
Yeah. Now his claim to fame is biology, and
Yeah.
actually he was quite a biologist of some renown.
I'm gonna. This is the thing I've been sitting on. Yeah, because it's like
Nobody's surprised.
Scientists get into so much. Okay, I'm gonna say it and then I'm gonna back it off. Scientists get into a lot of trouble when they use their PhD credentials in one field to somehow claim expertise in another. On the other hand, I have a podcast on which I come on and I throw stones at these people.
Just saying.
So let's recognize that,
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. All right.
And, if I was an asshole, I'd say you're neither an historian nor a lawyer. Lawyers practice.
Lawyers practice, but I am trained.
You do have the
as
JD
both.
now.
I am trained in both.
Now, if I was an asshole, but I am not.
And
And you are a historian
And
by
I have-
virtue of doing a podcast. You are an historian by adding to the mix. You may not have written any books. That's a shame.
yeah.
And you may not have a
not published
degree
or
from a good university of history per se.
I don't have an advanced degree from a university,
or
but
an
I do have a
undergrad
history degree.
You could have a history degree. But I'm not an asshole, and I don't really care.
Yeah, I know.
Which is why you're on the show.
Right, I know.
And you do serve a great purpose, John. Bring in all that
Okay.
big brain,
Okay.
that big humanities
It's just
brain.
biology's got nothing to do with translating Ogham.
That also does not preclude him from having opinions.
It does not preclude him from having
And
opinions.
it also doesn't preclude him from, I say here he's an armchair epigraphist, but that doesn't mean that, he can't have a lot of excellent insights and be incredibly correct about it. I'm not going to throw him under the bus at all. And he was also associated with Harvard University. It wasn't clear to me how. I don't think he holds a degree from Harvard, but I know that he was invited to be a part of the teaching.
He might have been a visiting professor.
Yeah, something like that. But it wasn't a degree, but he was associated with Harvard. They respected him at some point.
I can't. Yeah, they respect him somewhere.
They lost respect for him somewhere.
I came across that somewhere in doing the background for this episode, but I don't remember what it is myself either. So
yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah,
and
there's some
threw that in
association
because
there.
I was gonna pluck your nerves a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he's a smart guy. I mean, no doubt, and definitely entitled to his opinion.
Yep. Okay, so we should look briefly at the wider context so as not to lose sight of what it can tell us. So even if we zoom in and try and pick apart each piece of evidence, which is useful, and we should, there is always a wider context that offers the totality of the truth with its own interpretations required at that scale. Okay. A Mystery Hill is not in any way an isolated anomaly alone in the wilderness. There are discoveries ranging in location from Lanzo Meadows, which we talked about last week, in Newfoundland, all the way south to Brazil for early world contact. Now, while we're here and we know we have time to kill a little bit, well, maybe not that much. Have you heard about the amphorae supposedly in Brazil? And I'm going to blank on the name because I cut it out.
Okay.
But
I have not,
in
so
Brazil,
I can't back you up here. So the riff may be short-lived.
Yeah,
but.
that's okay. But I only mentioned Brazil because that's the site of a very popular bay, a very safe harbor on the coast of Brazil, where purportedly on the floor of the bay under the water they have found what they believe to be a Roman shipwreck full of amphorae.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to waste my time and go look for stuff, but that was one that I threw it in there because it's apparently very popular, very debated. But I looked briefly at it. But anyway, I was just curious if you knew.
I don't.
Okay.
And I don't want to speculate at this point.
Yeah, no worries.
But being blown across the ocean
Right.
from, say, the coast of Africa,
Absolutely.
and then not being able to get back.
I think that was very common.
I don't know how common it was, but it certainly does not seem beyond the realm of possibility. So, and I think that's in some ways how we talked about the monks, the hermit monks from Ireland being found across the northern Atlantic. I think in many cases they were blown off course and found near land too.
I think that they could have been blown off course,
Yeah.
but I think they would have purposefully been going
Once
west.
you find, they were purposely going west.
Yeah.
Once you find land, you go back and forth when you can. But
Well, and there's an interesting thread to pull there, which we'll talk about later, about other groups that were following in the heels of those monks and others. Okay, so let's examine one nearby site that is 50 miles to the south in Massachusetts. This is called the Upton Chamber. Now, there are archaeological dates of 1360 to 1625 AD from OSL sampling. That's optically stimulated luminescence.
Okay.
And that is basically an apparatus that it looks at the surface of a stone. I think it's taking it from the stone, and it is somehow dating the last time, or I'm going to have to look that up. I don't want to misquote it.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah,
I don't know how that works.
It's something about the depth of which the patina, the last time that patina would have been open to the air, I think it was, or open to the sunlight, or exposed to sunlight.
Interesting. Yeah. What kind of material does it date?
I think it's the stone, and that's
stone?
that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think again the patina goes into it, but anyway,
Now I'm really curious, but I don't know anything about this right now.
I actually pulled that in a little bit late because I needed some dating, and I knew there was some, and I didn't want to just say that there were dates and no, with no indication of what it was from. But as I understand it, though, also even archaeologists are a little sketchy on this particular method.
Yeah, because I would say
they'll accept it and say, "Gotcha, that's what you got from the field."
But
nobody's going to lean on it.
Yeah, can we do something else to better, more precisely,
Yes.
or corroborate?
It's corroborating. It's backing it up.
Because you can date organic material thanks to the carbon-14 stuff, but I think there are limits.
There's limits to that,
there are definitely limits on that. The closer you get to the modern era.
Yes.
And my understanding was always that the inorganic material like stone or metal, there was no widely accepted way to date that except by context. Mm-hmm. Like how is it worked? Where is it found? What else is it found with? Can we pin it to some other organic material that it's found with, like jewelry on a corpse?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I took a minute. OSL dating measures the last time mineral grains were exposed to sunlight or heat, providing ages for sediments and archaeological materials. So certainly stone is a good one.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, we don't want to spend too much time.
No, we can move on from there.
It's useful. Well, but I think
it provides us a date.
But we care, and I do care. I think the science is really necessary. All right. Now we're looking at, again, it's the Upton chamber. That's the name of it. It has unique characteristics and is equally mysterious as Mystery Hill. It is considerably smaller. As a matter of fact, it's just a small little, basically a tunnel with a room, but it is supremely distinct. Now, the Upton chamber we mentioned has what's called a beehive chamber with a corbelled roof. Now, this appears to be very similar to Celtic design. In Freddie Silva's book, The Lost Art of Resurrection, where I pulled a lot of the information about the resurrection ritual, chapter 6 is titled The Secrets of the Beehive, and here is the first sentence in that chapter. A recurring characteristic of Celtic ritual chambers is the fitting of interior roofing stones to simulate a beehive.
Okay.
So the Celtics, the beehive, to resembling a beehive is entirely the point, because in the mystic and the mysticism of which is a tradition in some of these mystery traditions, is that the bee, like honey, is symbolically representative of sort of boy, I'm gonna butcher this.
Okay.
But the bee is the bee, the honey, the hive, and everything about it are ritualized and symbolic. I think I'm gonna have to look that up. I don't want to misstate it, and I don't want to misquote it. But the bee is a common motif in some of these mystical traditions.
Okay.
We'll have to come back to that.
Yeah,
I have to take a minute to find it. But so anyway, again, when I say that these constructions are simulating the beehive, it's not just like, oh, it resembles a beehive. That was what they were going for. Okay. Now, We mentioned Mary Gage before. Here's a quote from some of her work. And John, if you would.
The chamber consists of a tunnel which connects to a roughly round beehive interior room. Maver and Dix noted the transition from the tunnel to the interior room's dome was done using stone corbelling rather than a lintel stone. The dome of the chamber was created by the use of corbelling. The top of the chamber was finished with a stone slab.
Yeah. Now, that description is of the Upton chamber, but it is also descriptive of some of the different chambers at Mystery Hill. So you have a correlation there of the architecture. Again, that is if you trust that the construction at Mystery Hill was not reinvented, so to speak, or reinterpreted by the reconstruction. Now, I'll read this from Native AmericaRoots.net. There are several hundred chambers in New England, 105 in Massachusetts, 51 in New Hampshire, 41 in Vermont, 62 in Connecticut, 12 in Rhode Island, and 4 in Maine. Now, while we don't know exactly why these chambers were constructed, there appears to be good evidence showing that at least some of them were used in making astronomical observations. The use of corbelling as a way of constructing stone roofs is found in many parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There is a roofing technique which involves the creation of a dome-shaped roof by layering overlapping courses of masonry closer and closer to the center of the space to be covered. While there are some who would deny that the New England chambers, such as the Upton Chamber, were built by Indians, it is interesting to note that the early English settlers in the area remarked on the fact that the chambers were already present when they arrived. All right, and so for our purposes, we've got the picture of the Upton Chamber, which is the drawing.
I see it. Yeah.
You've got sort of a plan and scale view.
I also was doing a little side work looking up corbelling because I thought I knew what it was and I wasn't sure. And now, okay.
Yeah, corbelling effectively creates that angled slope.
Yes.
That arc slope to the top.
Gotcha.
Yep. And then if you go down further, you see Skellig Michael.
Yes, yeah, which I was familiar with.
Yep, on the western edge of Ireland.
All of this is unmortared stonework.
Mm-hmm, right.
Meaning all you've done
dry assembled
is dry assembly by laying one block on top of another.
Mm-hmm.
This is, okay. The most simple form of stone masonry you can do.
Yeah, I mean, when you, and there's a tradition of, for example, when you say dry stone wall construction, there's a whole history there. I mean, masons will talk about it, and it's not that it's any less archaeologically strong. It's that the wall is, and in some cases, right? Like the idea is you can build a wall that is just as sound by the interlocking of the stones. And we'll put all these pictures in the show notes, but it goes to show you that this isn't just easily stacked stones. Anyone would have a challenging time to create what is in this picture of Skellig Michael. It would be a challenge to create this. Now, the next picture is Newgrange in Ireland, and that's another good example of corbelled roofing, and that also happens to show a passage tomb. Which is, it's covered in earth, and it's a long passageway, and that is definitely one of the sites that they thought was used in these resurrection ceremonies. Okay, so we're heading into the theories and the wrap-up section, and this is the once official word of the website from America's Stonehenge, but they removed it. But anyway, we're going to use it.
They removed this.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I went to. I know I went to the website. I just didn't do comparisons.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I started this script and this was up there, and then when I went back to the page because I was going to reference it again, and it had completely changed. Okay. So yeah.
Well, I mean.
I'm saying
that just seems on brand with this location. I mean, because we brought up the Holzer Fell episode of In Search of, and at the time the theory they were expounding upon was the Phoenician theory, that this was built by Phoenicians. They had come over and built it that way. And then somehow there was a side trip to Crete, to the Minoans. It was weird. It's just like it's
the In Search of
episode?
It's
like and then there was the Irish monks, the Chaldee monks. It's like they can't settle on a culprit. It changes every so often, so it doesn't surprise me that their website changes.
I don't have that. That's
You
a
don't-
weird.
you don't
That's a
feel
weird
that?
connection.
You don't
No.
you don't get that feeling that
Well,
they
I
keep
think-
changing who their culprits are for who built these things. Who do you think built those?
No, we'll get to that. I
Okay.
don't. I
Okay.
can see
Maybe
the
that's an
connection
unfair
you're trying
question
to
right
make.
now,
That it's
but-
just sort of it's all jumbled in
Yeah,
your head.
I
but I
feel
don't,
like it's
I don't-
jumbled.
I don't connect that to the website.
Okay, and well,
I think
it's
I
on
think
brand
more
that things
from a-
keep changing. That's all.
Okay. Well, that's a very
That's my
cute,
connection.
that's a cute observation.
Yeah,
I
it is.
think it's more of a
It's
business.
a bit of an a-hole
It is.
observation.
And I
but
know you're losing your patience, but I
not
think it's
yet.
more of a business choice. Like, why would I put all the theories and conclusions on the website when I want you to come to the site and read it and pay the ticket price and come in and look
Yeah.
at it? So
Yeah.
that's what I took away from it.
Okay.
And because I think the site originally was supposed to be sort of the stop for those that are researching it. But again, I think they said, from a business standpoint, no, come here and read it.
Okay.
And
I
experience
follow
it.
that.
So that's where I took from it. I know what you're saying, and I think you're being a little facetious, and I
A little.
think it's
Yeah.
funny. But
Okay.
yeah, but go for it. Yeah, so this was on the website.
All right, I'll read it.
And yeah, go ahead.
Unfortunately, the original builders of America's Stonehenge remain unknown. While we do know that early construction happened here about 4,000 years ago, no diagnostic artifacts from that time have been discovered. The earliest diagnostic artifacts attributed to the Pawtucket people are dated to about 2,000 years ago. Similarities to megalithic structures in Europe, as well as the discovery of possible Old World inscriptions, has led some researchers to believe that there may be a connection between this site and ancient Western European or Mediterranean cultures. In the ongoing research of this site, we strive to keep an open mind. Before forming any conclusions about the origins of this site, it is important to follow where the evidence leads. Hopefully, with continued study, we can reveal who actually built these structures and what culture or cultures used the site over its thousands of years of history.
All right. That sounds reasonable. And the site apparently is in good hands. Now, who knows what else they may uncover there? As we said, research does continue. Now, as for us, you and me, John, we're left to speculate. Now, it seems to me that paradigm breakers receive the most flack, usually because they're on target. Whether they come from within or from outside academia, they get in trouble. Now, there's a strong urge to maintain certain conclusions. History is full of these examples of its victims and sometimes the complete upheaval of old ideas. It does happen. But rather than trudge through human nature, let's instead ask some questions. And this is the fun part.
Okay.
In my mind, this is just asking questions. Could Europeans, North Africans, or Middle Easterners possibly reach the shores of America in ancient times? Yes. Evidence of large seafaring ships exists. For example, in Julius Caesar's Book 3 of De Bello Gallico, he described the greatest naval battle he ever mounted this way: a force of Gallic and Brighton ships, numbering 220, were larger and superior to Admiral Brutus's navy. Caesar remarks the ships were so soundly constructed that they could outride any tempestuous or contrary winds upon the very ocean itself without sustaining injury. Now, Barry Fell states that Celtic sea power is largely ignored in history. So there's evidence there in Roman writing. Now, equally interesting are the ships of Tarshish. Sounds like I have a lisp, but it's not.
Tarshish.
Tarshish.
I think.
Tarshish.
I think.
Thank you. That's a good way to say it.
Or Tartessos.
Tartessos.
Yeah.
In the Greek. All right. Now, this culture is in southern Spain. Now, the Bible speaks of the ships of Tarshish as the largest seagoing vessels known to the Semitic world and became synonymous with seagoing power. Now, evidence also exists for small, more maneuverable craft crossing great waterways.
Yes.
No one doubts the Viking longships could make it to Lanza Meadows. It's the pliability of those ships that gives them their resilience. There are even suggestions that Vinland was the coast of modern United States, which takes them far beyond Newfoundland. And of course, John, you mentioned the little buy station or the way.
Yeah, that was
station.
Actually that was further north. Actually, I mentioned that in the last episode that it's above the Arctic Circle along the Hudson Bay. Interesting little aside to this about, because yes, the other there is a whole saga of Vinland where it's recounted that the people who were apparently at Lanza Meadows came down the coast further and visited some other sites, and it was called Vinland because they encountered something that at least reminded them of grapes, something they would call grapes, some kind of vine.
Yep.
The last time I went to Cape Cod, I'm flipping through my guidebook to see what's currently there. We were staying in the town of Dennis, which is on the north shore of Cape Cod, looking into the Massachusetts Bay.
Okay.
The guidebook said, this little creek is often reported to be a place where Leif Erikson encountered. I'm like, where the hell does that come from?
Nobody cares.
Nobody
John.
cares. But
nobody
there
cares.
But there is a tradition.
There's a local legend.
There's a local legend about that. That's a spot.
But we
where
don't
the
believe in.
Vikings,
We don't. It's mythology. We don't follow mythology, John. Nobody cares about mythology.
No,
John. I'm being facetious.
No, there's right. There's a lot about the Vinland saga that is of interest because it belongs to a group of sagas that is much more historical or family saga based rather than mythological or fantastical. There are certainly fantastical sagas, and there's a group that's got elements of both, but this one is not part of that set. It is a much more historical set. There's a lot of question about where else they went.
Yeah,
but it does not mention the Kensington Runestone. I'm just going to say that.
I was going to go there.
It does come down the coast.
It
does come down the coast of what must be in North America to some degree. It's just a question of how far and where. Yeah. Like it isn't beyond the realm of possibility that they got to Cape Cod, which is why that stuck out in my head.
Not at all. Nor is it out of the realm of possibility that they went up the St. Lawrence Seaway and through the Great Lakes to land where they're supposedly marked up this stone.
Yes, their technology would have allowed them to do that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it was because of that technology that they could get as far up the rivers.
Yes.
There also, Vikings were known to have been down into the Black Sea.
Yes.
I mean, and this is because they could go up the rivers very far. They could
port the
ship over.
And then get to another river.
That's correct.
Yes, there were ways to do that, and they had the knowledge. Yeah.
Now, the other thing is what is often not talked about with the Norse, or maybe it is, and I've just not run across it, but these ships, like the Antikythera device, these things do not appear out of thin air.
No.
Where is the buildup period of ship making that leads to the longship? You see, I would love to know what's the maritime history. What's the first implementation of it? So how does it iterate through and become what it is?
I can tell you that exists.
Yeah, I would love to see it. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it doesn't just show up like a 747. I can tell you it exists. I have not traced that myself through my material because I'm not that much of a ship building fan of the maritime. I mean, I can tell you some interesting factoids about the ships, but
I know them all. I've got books on
it. That technological evolution does exist. For that.
So all I'm saying is, if we're saying, Lanza Meadows, 1000 AD, positively dated. Okay, great. But the ships that got them there, right? It was at 50 years to develop them, 100 years, 1,000 years.
Well, by the time they got to Launchy Meadows, the ship technology is very well developed. And yes, that's why I'm nodding at you saying I cannot deny it would have permitted them to go into the interior via the rivers, via the St. Lawrence, the Great Lakes, et cetera, if they chose to do that. You're really talking about a logistical problem. When people ask why didn't they do more to colonize North America, it's an issue of, can you get enough people there for critical mass that far away from their cultural central homeland of Scandinavia, and that was difficult.
Well, and if you're on the pointy end of the spear way out in the front, you're not necessarily building, and you can go out there and they never come back.
Yeah.
And people that don't come back, it's a coin flip whether they're like, oh, they ran into something mundane or they ran into a sea monster. We don't go west anymore. You understand? Like the Japanese wouldn't venture off of the mainland because of the fear of what's in the water. As I understand it, that for the longest time the Japanese culture was sort of land-bound. Well, I'm using an example that there was generally a fear of going west. You fall off the edge of the earth, as used to be, or at least at some point in time, that was a thought. Right?
These two episodes remind me very much of the premise for Neil Gaiman's book, American Gods, where whether they're blown off course or they're adventurous, these various expeditions from across the old world come to the new world, and they bring with them their gods. And the premise of the book is about how the gods are interacting with each other, but and that there's a connection between the culture and the reality of the god. And once the god is here in North America, they stay, even though like the Egyptian expedition that was blown off course and somehow managed to make it here, they all die off here. They've left behind that imprint. And they can't prove it. And that's one of the interesting things is that even though these things are brought up in the course of the book, like how did Osiris get to central Mississippi? And he goes back into a vignette about the expedition, and he's always like, and they just left a footprint and little more than that. And now this god is stuck here, and it's just a fascinating little book about those kinds of we always say, right, that the art mimics life and life mimics art, and where do these ideas come from? There's one book I brought upstairs because I forgot I had it. I didn't. The Voyage of the Pyramid Builders talks all about you really want to have your head spin. Read that book, because that's saying like they intentionally went and sailed not only from out west over to the New World, but on the other way too. Going the other way, because there's plenty of evidence through the Pacific that there were anomalous building sites. We haven't even touched upon those, like Nan Madol. Oh no, we haven't touched them
yet. The Maori sites.
I'm sure we'll get to them.
I know, but I love to drop the pins because it just sets the stage for all of these. Now we'll point back, but let's keep going.
Yeah. I don't want to get too far off.
Let's keep going. And remember, what we're doing here is we're just asking questions. Let's ask more questions.
We're like we're on Joe Rogan's show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just a bit. Yeah. Man, have a cigarette. Gotta stop thinking about it. Make me want to go have a cigarette.
You don't want one.
I don't. No, I really don't. All right. So the next question I'll ask is, could Native Americans have worked in stone? Yes. Yes, of course. There's ample, uncontested evidence of this, and it's everywhere. So that's not even a question. But that's a problem. People have a problem with that. Now, could the native tribes have learned this from an older visiting culture with a tradition of stone building and tracking celestial alignments? Yes. Yes, they could have. This would fit neatly with the diffusion of this knowledge into the Middle Americas, like Cahokia in Illinois. These were the Mississippians, who are also known to sacrifice their own. We talked about that. I don't want to dwell on that. But they appear to have abandoned stone and chose earth and wood to track the skies. Now, there are an estimated 100,000 mounds in the Americas that still exist, and it's estimated that 1 million were destroyed after the accepted arrival of Europeans. Poverty Point, Louisiana, west of Vicksburg, is a good example of another site like Cahokia.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
you just kind of breezed over Cahokia, which may have been larger in size in 1300 than the population of London in England, or possibly even Rome in Italy. So that was a huge metropolitan site. Well, it just wasn't built the same way that the Europeans were building.
But well, and again, I think it's interesting that they abandoned stone. We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But if you want to, while you paused me there, considering other sites in South America, there's a suggestion that the Amazon jungle, when they have cleared it, and they now are doing LiDAR, they are seeing massive structures, massive.
They're finding that all throughout Latin America. They're finding additional Mayan sites, Mayan pyramids,
all through the
jungles of Guatemala.
Not only stone constructions, but in the plains, in the jungle where they have cleared it, they see these earthen constructions as well. And they're saying, again, like you said, they support millions of people. Now, here's another question. If the Atlantic Ocean was not in the way, would we connect sites like Skellig Michael and the Upton Chamber based solely on their architectural technique? I think so. The ocean is supposedly some uncrossable boundary, and it forces the odd conclusion that they are not connected. That paradigm holds on for dear life, and it's, in my opinion, absurd. Now, why would the Mississippians abandon stone and choose earth and wood instead? Now, this is where I'm just having fun. So bear with me.
All right.
Now, we've speculated in other episodes that stone, boulders, is an accumulator of energy when properly configured, or maybe even loosely configured. When fashioned with intention into a temple to commune with spirit or of whatever nature, is it possible that it is highly effective? In other words, it increases your connection to spirit. Now, Black Eagle said his ancestors did not build Mystery Hill. He said it is full of dark, bad energy. Now I'd ask, how did it get there? Who brought it in or accidentally let in this bad energy? Now even the Holzer files had scary experiences on Mystery Hill. I wonder why. In the Missing 411 episode, The Crazy Mountains, were where you go for a spiritual contact, but otherwise you steer clear. They said the wind would blow and drive the white man crazy. Now, is it possible that the native tribes became fearful of stone or already knew of its power? Did they initially accept the strangers from across the sea, but later drive them out? Did some groups accept the new religion while others resisted? Did a more powerful group adopt it and carry it into the Midwest, maybe Cahokia? And was it carried into the South later on, taking on various aspects as they experimented with these odd effects and rituals that stone temples have? Stone temple pilots? Yeah, we're just speculating. Now, the strong and prevalent evidence for Native American construction is evidential and clear, but I can also envision a mixture of cultures. Now, since the visitors from Europe would not be a conquering army per se, in fact, they might have been very much in alignment with the beliefs and customs of the indigenous. Now, even Plymouth had moments of peace and friendly exchange. Now, perhaps the groups lived harmoniously, the indigenous finding the stone creations curious. Perhaps they saw the value in tracking the stars and the moon. Perhaps for practical purposes like farming or migration, which is typically talked about. Or maybe they were informed of the reason one might track the skies, perhaps as an early warning for another cataclysm like what happened during the Younger Dryas. The indigenous certainly had an oral and glyphic memory of that event. The serpent in the sky is a common theme across the world, and this serpent, a comet, it's suspected, brings destruction. Now, incidentally, this is an argument for sturdy stone construction found around the world. It's suggested that it is to guard against the debris that comets hurl down from the sky. And I'm referencing here Derinkuyu, which is a site we'll cover, but is effectively a huge underground labyrinth built into tuft, which is a compacted lava conglomerate. Also, I would mention the Hypogeum on Malta is a similar underground construction. And by the way, on Malta, this is where you can find Gigantia and Menidra, which are both sky-watching temples. So the elusive truth is hard to discern and not as simple as it seems. Dare I say messy, John, to use your words?
Yeah, it's messy. Okay.
Now, I think there is a long tradition of sky gazing, tracking, and a yearning for understanding. The sky, this is the home of the gods, could turn on you. It was dangerous, and the people react in different ways in different cultures. They are also influenced in different ways, but there seems to be a common experience underpinning the vast time scales. In those days, people had a much more broad memory and comprehension of time scales and their own history. They built large and permanent installations to withstand time. It was possibly life or death to them. So no, I do not diminish the ability or the skill of the indigenous to do as I excluded the possibility of extensive early European contact in the Americas. How could I? Mainstream will tell you Asia walked here across the land bridge in Alaska, populating North and South America, which I believe took place, but also at the time of the Ice Age, seafarers could have taken routes from the North Sea to Canada and further south. Now, there's evidence for that piling up. Have you seen that information, John? Are you familiar with that? Where they're saying that instead
You're saying during the
just
Ice Age?
instead of just strictly the land bridge
Right.
from Asia, that there was also migration from Europe over to the Americas in an earlier era.
I have seen something on that, but I haven't delved deeply into any of that to really have much of an opinion.
Well, I have.
But I know there are some anomalies that can be explained best by that kind of theory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of it is the Clovis, and I took a lot of that out, and we can cover that in another episode. But anyway, I was just curious if you heard about that. So again,
I can't be everywhere doing everything.
I know, but you normally have some insight into most things. So I'm just curious. That's all.
I'm also working through in my head an insight that I just had a flash of inspiration about here. But go on.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh, well, do share.
Okay.
Now, it seems to come down what you personally believe. Are you willing to accept pre-Columbian or Columbus or ancient civilizational transatlantic voyages? Now, there's scads of evidence, but most of it falls under heavy scrutiny. You'll see here I've grayed out some of the information about Giza and Sacsayhuaman in South America, and basically what I was poking at there was reoccupation of older sites. This picture that you're looking at is Sacsayhuaman, and it shows both the large megalithic sites with the later smaller rocks built on top. And oddly enough, in these cases, it's the older constructions that are more, that are larger and more complex and take more skill than the earlier ones, which is to say that they were more advanced in the past. Now, but even in mystery, there is hope. For many sites, that hope is a larger context which might shed some light on the mystery. That is, in totality, some insight can be gleaned. Now, let's be honest, many archaeological sites, from the relatively inconsequential to the supremely impactful, have the same issues as Mystery Hill. Now, these rocks have sat in position on the surface for hundreds of years. Many people have occupied the space. what they did to repurpose, reposition, reinterpret, and to incise their own information upon the rock faces will never be fully uncovered. So for now, Mystery Hill joins the ranks of other sites as anomalous and indeed mysterious. Even if Mystery Hill is not a smoking gun of BC-era arrivals of Europeans, there are many artifacts and discoveries that will keep this debate going for a while. Many of these we will perhaps discuss in future episodes. And there's so much more, John. That is the end of the official script.
So
There's so much more.
Is it fair to ask my question now? What your opinion is on who built it? And it's an on the spot question.
No, that's fine.
And we're certainly in the business of continuing to examine this. So I'm asking for your opinion as of this moment.
Yeah, I would have to go back and I think that these are signs that groups like the Irish ascetic monks were traveling over to the New World to seek the isolation that they could not find where they were. In the same spirit that the Vikings were finding these monks ahead of them and they kept traveling west and west and west, mm-hmm. I think they carried with them a tradition of sky gazing and stone construction, and the evidence is there. Again, I would say if the ocean was not there, people would have, generally, we would have no problem saying these match. This is a history of construction, and it's the diffusion of this knowledge, and it is, to me, it's evident that the tribes were influenced by this contact and carried it on further into the Americas, further into Central and South America. Now, I will say that and temper it with the idea that I also believe that cultures were coming from the other side of the globe. There's evidence to suggest that the Chinese landed and influenced the Olmecs. Now, do I know that for a fact? Do I believe it? I don't know. I've seen the evidence. It's in some of these books. But let me tell you this, and this will be my final thought, and I'll let you speak.
Okay.
That, to me, there are far more anomalies than there is a cohesive single story. The story that we're told does not match, in my estimation, the scads of pieces of evidence. And so, to me, there's a preponderance of evidence, even though I don't understand it all in its unique context. To me, the fact that a guy who is otherwise a very intelligent man, Barry Fell, would write a book that has so much detail and so many artifacts and so many details about what is anomalous that I find it hard to dismiss it. And so I find it worthy of discussion and investigation. And that's where I stand. Can I say who built it? I can't say who built. I don't know enough about those ancient people who would have been there, like in Europe, and then have traveled over. But I think it is representative of a series of trips, not a single monolithic trip, but a series of small contact where this tradition is carried over and is made and is represented there. And that, again, it would be hard to see and find the evidence.
Okay.
And because it would have been such a small footprint, but yet the things that remain are the stone structures. Now, that is not to say, and I hope before anybody misinterprets me again, clearly the indigenous are very capable of stone construction. It's not about that, but it's where's the influence? Where is it coming from? What is the movement of this information? What does that appear to tell us if we were to ignore that the ocean was not an obstacle? And I don't believe that at all. I think that there was far more contact than we give, than we have on evidence, maybe, or at least evidence that we accept. So that's where I am on it. What do you think? And you said you had an insight. I'm curious to know what your insight is. Quick break, folks. We'll be right back.
Do you know what happened to Cahokia?
I cannot say I know what happened to Cahokia. No.
Or the Mississippian culture that was still present when Europeans arrived.
Yeah, I haven't studied it. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what the collapse was from.
The current thinking is that it collapsed because the diseases that the Europeans brought over with them preceded them. Like they touched the initial cultures, and then the disease spread more rapidly than the European colonists.
Yeah.
So the insight I had was, why didn't that happen sooner if there was constant contact?
Mm-hmm.
Or
well, that's an interesting insight.
Or why didn't, if there was constant contact, why didn't the North American indigenous population have more resilience or resistance to the European disease?
Well, maybe it did.
So,
I mean, maybe because it was, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know the spreads.
I don't know either. Like I said, this just hit me in like the last 20 minutes as we were talking about, well, there's contact. And I'm like, well, with contact comes consequences. And the history tells us that one of the consequences of that contact was that European disease devastated the interior population of the North American continent.
Right.
Some have gone so far as to call it a post-apocalyptic landscape. And, that becomes a question. Well, why wouldn't that have happened earlier if there was constant
who's
contact?
to say that there wasn't some smaller scale effect and that there was... I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Like I said,
Germs and Steel, the popular book that describes, what the decimation was all about. There would also have to be, if there was a diffusion or an intermarrying, or where the cultures were, blending together and intermarrying, there would be a genetic footprint.
Mm-hmm.
But there is, as I understand it, when you're talking about the peopling of America from the east to the west, that is Europe into North America from Europe during that age of 14,000 years ago when the land bridge was open, or even earlier than that. I think they are finding evidence that is further down, like in Florida. They're finding evidence that, in fact, there is enough to corroborate that is really where it came from. And getting back to the Clovis, and without diving deep and having to explain Clovis, Clovis was named for the site that's out west in New Mexico, I think it is.
Okay.
They said they found these spare points. They were unique, and they were at the lowest accepted stratigraphic level, and it was near Clovis, New Mexico, I think it was.
Okay.
And the idea was that, these were the folks that came in very early and then migrated to the east. But then they found, and actually it's in the Delmarva Peninsula, they also found Clovis points that were older than the ones out west. So the suggestion is it actually started here and moved west. As opposed to the other way around. And that was an example of a big paradigm that was overtaken. But anyway.
Another question.
Yeah.
Okay. Why are we relying so heavily on the stone architecture?
It's what exists.
Yes. So where are the other artifacts? If this is
I've heard about
if this is an Iron Age, Bronze Age site, and people are suggesting that with the Phoenicians,
right?
Where are the bronze tools?
Yeah. So I ran across that too, and one of the suggestions was that that the iron, since it was the iron, or there was iron artifacts, certainly they have a very good chance of being found, but they also have a good chance of deteriorating beyond recognition. And of course, if they're bronze, they're gonna last longer. So that is a good question.
Yeah.
But one of the pieces of evidence that, if I recall, when I was reading on those articles, there was, I forget where it was. It might have been the Chesapeake Bay, maybe a little further north, but they found an iron Viking axe in the water that they fully formed. I'll have to find
I missed that piece that would have been something I was looking for. That's later date than what we were looking for.
It is later.
I guess I'm specifically asking where are the associated cultural artifacts with Mystery Hill / America's Stonehenge, and apparently all we've got is this stone.
Right.
And one of the other excuses. Let me go back to Ken Fetter. He asked them specifically at that visitor center, "Hey, where are the Bronze Age artifacts?" And he was not saying, "Hey, I'm so and so." He was asking the question to see what kind of response he'd get, and the response he got was, "Well, they were so valuable that the people that were here took them with them." And he kind of nodded apparently and didn't push them, but he knew as an archaeologist that sometimes artifacts get left. And to his point, I would suggest an analogy that when my daughter was younger, my wedding ring went missing, because I'm in the habit of taking off my wedding ring at various points, like when I go to bed, when I go to do the dishes or something. But my wedding ring is precious to me. I am trying to keep track of my wedding ring. But my wedding ring went missing many years ago. Okay. Somewhere in the house. Okay. Now, gold is a very durable material. It's somewhere in the house still. Somewhere. When I move to my next home, that wedding ring will still be left in the house somewhere in hiding, somewhere in a baseboard. That's how artifacts get deposited in archaeological sites. That is, in fact, the way that we find things, evidence of the previous eras, that things get lost, things get misplaced, things get left behind, precious or not. That's my point. Is it, yes, I get it. Yes, if there's a likelihood that when I clean out the house, maybe I'll find it under the couch, but we looked everywhere. It's gone. Yeah. So sometime in 1,000 years, they will go to dig up Catonsville, and they will find my wedding ring, and they'll look at it, and they'll find it in the context and say it was 21st century, blah blah blah. That's how it works. So, where's the equivalent to that wedding ring at Mystery Hill? Potentially thousands of years of occupation, and there's not that wedding ring.
Well, I would push back and say I don't think it was necessarily stated that it was continuous thousands of years of contact. And what occurred to me was that if what we're talking about is, an ascetic group of meditators, right, looking to abandon themselves, they're going with nothing in the first place anyway. It would be arguable whether they would even have iron implements, and if they did, I don't know, maybe they're just not discoverable, or they didn't lose anything, they didn't have anything in the first place. I don't know. I think you ask a good question. And
I would think they'd have a knife.
Artifice, potentially. But I think if that's one of their 5 artifacts, it's not like I'm bound to go camping and leave my knife.
Right.
If I'm going to keep track of it, I keep my knife. You lost your ring, but that's not the
longer you're there, the more.
Well, maybe they weren't there that long. I don't know. You ask good questions, right? So my question would be in return, okay, what would we expect to find? And what evidence is there? What evidence is there in Europe that we are finding that says, these were the Celts, and this layer is this guy, and this layer is this guy, or this group that moved in, and here's the intermingling because of the pottery.
We find the middens, so all the trash. We find implements of survival, of our agriculture, of war. We find jewelry, and often in burial context, but we find lost jewelry.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand archaeology, and I understand finding artifacts and midden piles. But that's also to say that here's the other thing that I would say is that Europe is poured over, and it's also vastly smaller. There's only so many places in Europe for people. I mean, they were talking about, that we need more rooms, or we're going to go to the New World for forever.
But we find these things I mean, there is actually, I've never heard anybody dispute that this location was uninhabited, or say, or rather, they say it was inhabited, and we have found.
Well, it was sparsely inhabited.
And they have found evidence from other eras. They have found the charcoal from so far back, and we don't know who made the charcoal, but clearly they were indigenous that would have been available.
Well, so the question, and
we found colonial era artifacts there, but this period that
the
is so mysterious,
ones
we don't seem to have anything from.
And again, the question would be, what would we expect to find? Now, with the Indians, with the native tribes, you're going to have the stone tools, you're going to have the implements that they created in evidence. And again, they said nearby there were the manufacture sites where they're doing the chipping and the flaking, to make the points. And then there's the living sites where presumably they found cooking. But even the evidence for Mystery Hill says that it was varying levels of occupation. But I don't think I did not take away that the indigenous were in there living day after day after day after day for thousands of years. I think they may have used it as like a hunting shelter. These are also, they said that they were bands of 10 to 50 people at most and were nomadic. So I don't see them taking up residence there and being there forever. And as far as where the artifacts for the Europeans, I find that's a good question, but I also think that there's a lot more land in the United States than there is. I think people would be surprised how small England is.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pretty much put a shovel in the ground and find something because people were, living there. But again, I would want to know, what are we expecting to find? How long would iron last in the ground?
Which is a valid question. That was
one of the arguments that I had come up with.
I'll grant that's a valid question.
The other thing too is, and I don't want to go too far off, but there is also, and I have meant to look this up, and I'm glad I remembered this. But when people say, "Well, it's not on the fossil record," and then I've heard someone say in a different context, they said, "Do you know how rare fossils are?"
Yeah.
Like, you can't say on one hand that it's not in the fossil record, therefore it didn't exist, or whatever the argument might be about it being in the fossil record, but then turn around and say that fossils are incredibly rare for a species to be captured in the fossil record. So
I think that's we should just leave that there for the moment.
We should.
There's probably a better place to argue about that one. And again, I mean, arguing and exchange of ideas.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Because I do have some response to that, but it is both of those statements are in fact true.
Right.
This. Yeah, I got to tell you, looking at this with those gaps, I just think it is far more likely that this is in fact a colonial site, a colonial farmstead.
This particular site.
That's what I wanted to go back. There was something we said in episode 1 that I said I would circle back to about, well, farmers don't move stones. Farmers move stones all the time.
Yeah.
When they are clearing their land, they move stones.
Yeah.
And in fact, the other thing I wanted to piggyback on that thought for was the colonial people in this area, the colonists in New England came from England, came from Ireland, came from southern Scotland. When we talk about all the stonework and how the stonework is dry masonry, and this is one of the most primitive basic forms of we're just going to stack the stone on top of each other. It was the vernacular architecture of these people, the British Isles, for thousands of years into the colonial era. Yeah. And when they come over, they're going to do, they still build stone fences like this in Ireland today.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Well, so they even say that for whatever reason, and I'm not entirely sure, that they're confident that the indigenous were building walls for whatever reason, which I find a little strange. Yeah. I would be okay if someone could convince me or showed me evidence of the strictly Mystery Hill being a colonial construction.
Well, I think it's not strictly, because I'm saying the base construction, the base site was probably a colonial farmstead. And then when we talked about and this is me, and that's why I like, okay.
Well, that's why I zoomed out, because
Petit,
Mystery Hill is just
Godwin,
a weird site.
the Stone family, they have all, and with good intentions, I'm not trying to cast, malevolent attention on them. Mm-hmm. They've all messed with this site to greater or lesser degrees, and Godwin's probably the one who did it the most. And they have tried to create something out of what was there. And I found it interesting. You said that there's this, and I can't push back on this because I wasn't aware of it. The idea that these root cellars are found all over New England, and there are plenty of people saying, "Well, I found them there." The only pushback I can give on that is going to be, I realize, somewhat unsatisfactory. But let's go back to Dudleytown, and how now when you go to Dudleytown, all you find are those foundational root cellar-like constructions in the ground. That happened a lot, even from the early era on. So I
wouldn't equate Dudleytown's house foundations to what is described
and I know you've
as
been
a root
there.
cellar.
It's
not the same. When I say a root cellar, I'm not saying this is basically no.
Okay,
no,
go on.
No,
Describe what
no,
you're talking about.
No, then I didn't do my job of describing what these root cellars are. These are not. So let me see. Go back up in the script to. Well, go back up to the Upton Chamber. That's a root cellar. There's like over 200 of those in New England across all those states. That is not a foundation of a house. And if you go there, it's like a hole in the ground and like build into a hill.
Okay,
We're not talking about.
I will have to look into that.
I know
more.
what a house looks like when the wood is gone and rotted away and the stone foundation is left behind. It looks like a basement that's missing a house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
a
one
house
thing I'm
foundation.
talking about. Yeah.
When I say root cellar, that's not what I mean.
Well, there are other colonial era root cellars, ice houses of that, which are, again, they dig the hole out of the ground.
And so
that is
entirely the question as to did the colonial farmers build it or not. You've got experts saying that when they arrived, they were already here, and that they were presumed to be from the tribes. And that's the question.
And I need to look into that more in order to push back more effectively.
I understand. But no, that's a fundamental miscommunication.
Okay.
My description of them is not a basement with missing a house. It's more described of what the Upton Chamber is. And again, these are all over the place.
Yeah, but yes. When I look at the picture of the Upton Chamber, it certainly does look a little different from what I was imagining. It is certainly not a basement, and it is potentially
the other thing
mysterious. But I'm looking at one thing, but without the context of we know this was something that was used as an ice house, as a root cellar, as a storage facility underground to keep things safe. But those
repurposed that way. And that's what the colonial era suggestion was.
That was the suggestion. The colonists did build those kinds of things too. Again, stacking stone is not hard.
No,
to
it's
do,
not. But
especially if you have done it your whole life.
And
would it be difficult for us?
It may be the case that I walked over to my neighbor and I go, "What is that?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know what it is."
He was here when I got here. Yeah, and you all moved into land.
I put the carrots in there.
Yeah, and
I go, "What a great fucking idea," and I'll build my own. I can see that happening. I agree. I mean,
and you might have moved into land that a previous colonist had come to, begun to develop, and said, I'm moving on. Like I said with Robert Rogers, his family was originally in Massachusetts. They moved on to New Hampshire. Yeah. He moved on from there. They left some of these things behind. The colonists were constantly on the move for better land because, strangely enough, New England is not great farming land, partly because you keep running into those rocks that you need to pick up and move.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
So, I mean, there's just...
So the other thing
that's just me. I just needed to get that out.
No, I get it. I get it.
And I'm not saying that there aren't mysterious things about this. It's just this site is so problematic because people kept touching and messing with it.
Oh, well, if we're talking strictly about Mystery Hill, there's just no conclusion that you can make. I think that well, maybe, I don't know, maybe their test pit in the right place, because they're not excavating the whole 100 acres.
I know they're not.
They're doing test pits in likely places where there are swales or bumps in the ground or near, and they're probably now using LiDAR on the site to get a sense of what the different, the lay of the land is and where would you camp if you were there. And that's all a great way to do it, because you only have so much money, and you should, Mystery Hill is a mess. And that was why I was trying to say that up front. I don't think anybody is making that argument. I'm not even, I am my meter of, if it's strictly a colonial site, I don't think it was just a colonial site. I think there are other things going on much earlier, because that's in evidence. They've got charcoal there.
Right.
Now, whether this was a site that had
and the
stone
astronomical stuff
situated in a way that kind of lent a natural shelter, and then they just heaped the stone up. But the other thing is this: the putting of 4.5 ton stones. I think it is underestimated the movement of megaliths. People just assume because they're there, it must be easy. I'm telling you, I really don't think so.
Yeah.
I really don't think so. And there is...
Yeah, and I've heard explanations for that, and I'm not going to even bring them up, because without seeing it, I don't want to hang my hat on the explanation.
What I do know is... Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah. But I also know how crazy it sounds.
Yeah.
Because, yes, humans are ingenious. And they do crazy things that are miraculous. But I also have seen very specifically YouTube videos where they said, this truck and crane are about to be demolished, and they're moving a 5-ton block.
Yeah.
And they put a rock on a flatbed, and it tips it over like it's a Tonka toy. People really underestimate weight of stone. And they think, they just moved it in place, and then they brought it back down and chiseled off a little more, and then they put it back up there. And I'm like, do you have any idea how hard it is to even do the lifting of the thing in the first place?
And that's true.
There's something missing.
That's also true for any era.
It is.
So I mean, one of my questions would be,
we've gone way beyond Mystery Hill, and that's okay.
Yeah. But okay. But to bring it back to Mystery Hill, the astronomical stuff I can't really explain. My basic question would be, can we, with any certainty, know how long those stones have been in place?
So I can talk about a little bit of that.
Okay.
So they dug into a couple of the standing stones that are supposed to be the alignment stones, right? You're using that as the site to see the sun come up, and that's the stone.
Yeah.
Some evidence suggests when they dug around the stone that it wasn't just that it was plopped up in place and it's just sort of flimsily standing there on end, that it's dug into the ground, and that there are stones around it that are holding it in place.
Okay.
So that's what the archaeological, marble mouthing.
It's all right.
The evidence suggests that it was placed and then very carefully buttressed.
Leveled, so to say.
Yeah, so it doesn't fall over.
Right.
Or it doesn't heave out of the ground with the next frost.
And if it was one stone, I might be able to point at, it's just serendipitously put there. Because, for example, there are streets in New York City that miraculously line up with the solstice, because streets are laid out east, west, north, south.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, right. But that's coincidence. But
on the other hand, L'Enfant, Washington, D.C. is a planned city.
Right.
Know.
But, like I said, if there was one stone, you could say, well, it could be complete coincidence. But there are a couple of stones there that line up with things. And I know one of the suggestions is it was Goodwin again. But I can't put my finger on that.
I can't either.
I need somebody to be able to tell me what the confidence level of that is. And I don't know that anybody's got that confidence.
Well, not at that site.
No.
Other sites make it a lot easier, just by the nature of the construction itself. The constructions are much more...
But I'm also not arguing with every other site. It's just this one
I know.
that particularly bothers. Yeah. Because ancient people, I'm not even sure I really want to use that term, but indigenous people here in North America certainly watch the sky with the same kind of fascination that they did anywhere else, and were certainly capable of observing the cycles of the stars and sun and moon. And if they chose to put up stones to track these things, again, we have evidence that they were capable of doing that because there are other immense constructions in the landscape, like the Serpent Mound, that still exist.
Right.
Now,
Yeah.
was every grouping, every tribe, every nation interested in that kind of thing? Clearly not. Mm-hmm. You know, the question about
were they influenced by it?
the question about who used stone, who did not. Clearly, they were all capable of using stone, and some did in some places, and others did not in others. That's up to their cultural system to shake out.
Yeah.
But the ones at Mystery Hill, it's like who the heck knows? But you don't necessarily need to have that intercultural exchange with Western Europe to put up a stone.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
But it also can't be ruled out that again, this is a long, deep tradition, and some are going to argue that this goes way back.
Yeah, and I
way back 12,000 years to the Younger Dryas, and even beyond that.
Okay.
And so that's when you start to you really can't touch any of that in some ways because of just of it being for multiple reasons, which we don't need to go into. So we should start looking at. Wrapping up. Go ahead.
I do want to say this, though, because I've been spending all this time pushing back at the Mystery Hill American Stonehenge site. The fact that we now have 2 Viking Age sites in North America, the literary evidence that they came down the East Coast certainly suggests that there's more potential for that culture to provide us evidence of other exchanges somewhere, probably down Canada into New England. And there's even some speculation it's as far south as Maryland that they came to Chesapeake Bay. That was within possibility.
The question is, go ahead.
Okay. And do I find it enticing to think that other cultures may have had a foothold,
right,
a toehold?
Right.
Like, do I count out those Irish monks? They were clearly very tenacious. No. Some of these blown off course things certainly seem possible. Likely is another story. So I'm not ruling those things out completely. And if it is just these sort of pinpricks of influence of influence or encounter rather than exchange, that would explain why they didn't, because one boatload of Roman troops are being shipwrecked in the Americas probably would wipe out the immediate vicinity.
I don't know.
They're going to be kind of randy when they get here, and they're going to be in close contact with the people.
I guess,
but
I don't know.
But I don't know about But that's one pinprick. That's not going to wipe out the continent the same way that a constant exchange might.
Right. No, I get you. Yeah. And I don't think, obviously we're not talking about a massive invasion of any kind.
No,
and
not
think
an
these were
but an exchange, a long-term exchange is problematic from those standpoints.
Well, but I would want to talk to a pathologist to understand, immunologist to say, the pathology of what bugs were alive, what bugs were there to even pass, is what killed the indigenous during the colonial era the same. Would it have been there in the first place? Would it have even been there? Like the plague was there suddenly. What is that? 1200
from Asia.
From Asia.
Yeah.
And it came from somewhere, but anyway.
Yeah.
And so maybe there was nothing to bring over.
These are interesting questions.
Or maybe it did, it did decimate people, but it was something that was easily caught, but easily overcome.
Local,
maybe 30% of them died on a small scale.
And localized. That's what I'm saying about the one ship of shipwrecked Roman sailors. Right. Probably not having the same impact that a constant long-term exchange would have.
Yeah.
And certainly not everybody died just because they came into contact with a European. I mean,
Right.
there are examples.
It wasn't automatic.
There are examples of the Norse explorers bringing North American people to Europe, and for some reason that cultural virology exchange didn't go the other way at all. Don't know why, except that maybe the Europeans were so filthy that their immune systems were better.
Part of it.
But
I think that's part of it.
yeah. But they did. Those folks didn't show up in Europe and suddenly die. Even when in the colonial era, the bringing indigenous people back to say London, they would go back and forth. I don't think they all suddenly took ill and died.
I mean, the Sacagawea is supposed to have gone there and back again.
But these are interesting questions.
They are. Well, they are.
Why this and not that?
Well, there's so much that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, think about, we can dismiss this or accept it on the basis of simply stone constructions, but Barry Fell's book goes into the epigraphy and the commonalities between the languages, the proto-languages of the Mediterranean, and what you find in the
I'm making
Algonquin.
I'm making a choice not to delve into that.
Yeah, well, I know, and I'm aware
Yeah.
of all of the hate that Barry got for that as an amateur epigraphist. How dare he have an opinion?
I touched
which
that,
is ridiculous.
and that's enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat up.
Did you read the book?
I have not read the book.
Okay.
I have.
So when you read the book,
I have
let
read
me
the
know.
critical articles about the book.
Well, read the book.
And the book is from the 70s, so it's
Yeah.
old, it's pretty old at this point.
Well, that doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it
no,
wrong.
but-
And his
but
insights
the nature-
it doesn't
the
take
nature-
a genius to have insight.
No, but the nature of academic writing is that people you write your book and then people constantly throw stones at it until somebody writes a better book about the same subject, and then that becomes the stone target.
Yeah. Well,
and
admittedly, the
that's-
guy was
yeah.
it wasn't his first. It was an interest of his.
Right.
In the same way that the guy that translated all of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, or was it the cuneiform, was no expert. He was just an armchair guy that said, "I think I can tackle this." I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah. Okay.
But so I'm not the guy that's going to bow down to academia.
I know you're not,
Because
and that's fine.
Find it
That's fine.
I'd like they're good experts to find there.
That's
but
why we have this exchange.
I know,
and
but-
that's fine. And we leave it for the listener to decide.
Yeah,
okay, and that's
exactly.
fine. We're okay. I think I've wrapped up all the loose ends I had.
Okay.
So
I would
can
just want you to
stop.
go to the bottom of the discussion list and see if there's anything you want to touch there. I mean,
okay.
they're going to be big areas we can touch another time.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. I know there are ways to bring this up. Oh, the politics of giving the indigenous their
Well, and that's
a bugaboo
themes.
for me.
I'd be happy not to talk about it.
Yeah,
But all I'll mention is that it's across the world that you get these bad associations in both directions. It gets used in very.
Well, you used and I don't want to pick on you, but there was a phrasing that you used about advanced culture at some point in this, and I was like, I'm not sure it's so much advanced as different.
Oh, okay, yeah,
and that's I think a lot of
that's just an easy slip to
that's,
make.
I know, yeah, but I think that's a lot of the issue with that particular thing is that people think, well, this culture's more advanced, so they taught this other culture this other thing. Cultures are not more. If cultures are contemporary, they are different. One is not more advanced. Just because the Europeans had gunpowder when they encountered the Aztecs and the Aztecs didn't have gunpowder doesn't mean that one was more advanced.
Yeah, they're just
it's
different.
just different.
It
and
depends on
they
what
had
you're
expended
judging, too.
Yes, and they
Technology,
expended their energies
you
in
could
different
say,
directions.
By their technology was more advanced because it was, more refined resources to make it happen.
Right. And but there's also a
Depends on how
bias
you're-
towards a constant progress, that mankind's always progressing. And
I will be the first to admit that I'm not sure that we're getting very far.
right. Right.
Frankly. And, and I was trying to poke at that a little bit by saying the indigenous were like,
there's some,
we don't remember what we were saying in the other episode. It's like, we don't live at the confluence of rivers and build in stone because you get bad juju when that happens. You know what I mean? Like
different
they
culture.
know better.
Yeah. This is
Like,
but
go
these
ahead,
are
white man, go do that.
these
That's
are
dumb.
fascinating philosophical
They are.
questions
They are.
about,
There are.
again, back to
Right.
our real mission statement about exploring what it means to be human through all these
Right.
these
Right.
topics and questions,
Yeah.
and the human experience.
Yeah.
So I just want to touch them, and I think I can leave it there.
Okay.
I
we
don't
can
really
do
want to go back through your discussion. There will be plenty
Okay.
of other opportunities to
there
touch
is.
all of these things.
And I'm gonna. Well, I mean, as obviously we do a lot of pointing back, so we can
Yes.
pull a lot
Yes,
of
we
these
do.
threads and fatten them out.
Yeah, I mean, we're already referencing stuff we've talked about in the past.
Oh, yeah.
and examples
that's
from
why I had
previous
fun.
episodes. Yes,
I had fun with the idea that hey, the boulders, John. There's a pile of boulders.
there's a pile of boulders.
and the indigenous don't want to go near it because they're like, "What are you doing?" That's how the elementals get into your skull.
that's right.
And you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But I will.
Okay, good
so we're at the bottom.
discussion.
Yeah, it was a good one. I was worried that you were really going to be a pain in the ass, and you did a great job, John, of presenting information in a way that
I'm getting
wasn't
better.
imperious.
I'm getting better. I'm getting better because I'm trying to come back to that idea about, well, it's not that one's more advanced or more than this. It's the different perspectives, and I'm trying to give those different perspectives dues, and but there is a fundamental level where facts should be rock solid.
Well, as
and
you
I don't know that
saw-
we touched them in this one.
As you,
There's
as you
just
saw,
so many questions.
I meant, I don't know, maybe it goes in one ear and out the other, but I mean, even the hardcore grabbing of evidence off of a site and put through rigorous testing for dating is debated.
Yeah.
Even amongst the archaeologists,
Yeah.
they debate each other. So it's not just,
Of course they do. Yes. Yeah.
and
yeah.
so like you can, the guy, and so one final thing and we'll end it.
Okay.
I think in the spectrum, you've got the gullible people that believe anything, and you've got the gullible skeptics that deny everything. And somewhere in between, you got to figure out where you're going to stand. And that's all we'll say about that. So that's Mystery Hill. I hope you enjoyed it. We went long, even though we broke this in two.
Yeah,
we went an hour and 40 minutes.
It was still
on
a
this
long one. Yeah, but that was really good discussion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that was a good one.
Okay,
Oh,
so
thank
plenty to
you.
ponder.
Yeah, and we'll try and grab as many of these pictures and make them available for you out there so you can see what we're talking about and make up your own mind and let us know. So great. Any closing thoughts? We're going to shut this down.
No, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to pin anything at the very end here. We're just going to say, see you next week.
Bye.